Peeps, welcome to another video. Today it is part one of the McCalls 7971 sew along. So today we will be finding our size, working out which pattern pieces we need to trace, tracing everything and making a few alterations. So let's get started. For this sew along you will need your pattern, your fabric, matching bias binding, matching zip, matching thread, marking tool of choice. I like the friction pen and the Prim mechanical chalk pencil, fabric scissors, paper scissors, French curve, pins. You're also going to need an iron, an ironing board and a sewing machine and some pattern tracing paper, all of which are too big to fit onto this surface. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do is iron your tissue paper flat. The next thing that I like to do is make a note of all the pattern pieces that I want to trace. So I am making view D but without the little ruffle, although I do think I might use the ruffle in the future, so I am going to trace that piece. I don't think I'm going to ever want this dress with sleeves or the sleeves with ruffles, so I'm not going to trace those pieces, which is 12 and 13. So I've made myself a list here. This is one of the patterns that has the cup sizes done for you. You need to measure your bust straight across the back and over the fullest part of your bust and make a note of that measurement, and then measure your high bust, measure across the back, high up under the arms and across the top of your bust, and write that number down. And then the difference between those two measurements will let you know whether you need to do the AB, the C cup or the D cup. Now technically mine is sort of 2.5 inches different, so I'm going to go with the D cup because I'd rather have it slightly too big than slightly too tight, and also the finished measurements on the pattern pieces come out at a better measurement with the D cup for me than they do at the C cup. So I know I'm going to be tracing the D cup, which is bodice piece number 3. So I've written my list here of all the pieces that I want to trace, and I'll cross these off as I've traced them so that I don't miss anything out. Again, ask me how I know. So the next thing that we need to do is work out what size we need to trace. I have the pattern bundle 6 to 14. I need to trace according to the fold on the envelope up here. It would be a size 16 for the bust, for a 38-inch bust, between a size 12 and a 14, so it's a 26.5 to a 28-inch waist for the 12 to 14, and then I would need the size 18 for the hips, which is a 42-inch hip. Now they do build a lot of wearing ease into these patterns, and as you guys know, I prefer a closer fit, and I also feel like there's a close fit on the model here. As I say, I've got up to the size 14. The size 14 is for a 36-inch bust according to the pattern envelope, but if we look at the pattern pieces which have the finished garment measurements on them, the D cup, so pattern piece number 3, the 14 has a 41.5-inch finished measurement. So that is 37, 38, 39, 40, 41. That's 5.5 inches of wearing ease, which is an awful lot. I am not going to do that size. I am going to do the size 12 because that is a 39.5-inch finished measurement. According to the pattern envelope, that's for a 34-inch bust. I have a 38-inch bust, but a 39.5-inch finished measurement is my preference, so that means I will be tracing a size 12 for the bust. Now the waist finished garment measurements are on a different pattern piece. They are on pattern piece number 7. So according to this, I should be between a 12 and a 14. I'm probably going to go for the size 14 to err on the side of caution. The 14 on the envelope is for a 28-inch waist, and it has a finished measurement on the pattern piece of 30 inches. It's just out of shot here, but it's pattern piece number 7 that has the garment measurements, the finished garment measurements up here. The size 14 has a 30-inch finished waist. The size 12 has a 28 finished waist. I'm going to go for the size 12 at the waist. And then the hip measurement is on yet another pattern piece. It's on pattern piece number 6. The size 14 on the envelope is for a 38-inch hip, and the 14 on the pattern piece number 6 has a 41.5-inch finished measurement. So I actually technically need this next size up. I do have it, but I'm not going to go for that. I'm actually going to trace the size 14 at the hips, and I think that's going to work. Now I know I'm doing a 12 at the bust, a 12 at the waist and a size 14 at the hips, which is quite nice because it means there isn't too much difficult grading. So the next thing I need to do is trace all of these pattern pieces out. I like to trace my patterns. I like to do it because it preserves all of the sizes for me if I want to use this pattern again in the future. These patterns are expensive in the UK, so it means that I don't have to buy it again if I mess up. I prefer to alter sturdier paper than the tissue that this comes on, and especially if I make a mistake with my alterations. If I've cut the bodice out and made alterations to it, I don't have an original to go back to. So they're my personal reasons for tracing patterns. It's completely up to you, but I do recommend that you do it because it does mean that you end up with a master copy. If anything goes wrong, you can come back to. That's just my 2 penneth worth. So I'm going to get this traced out. I have traced off my pattern pieces and now I need to make some alterations. The standard alteration that I usually have to make is to add an inch of length to the bodice of the patterns. So I am going to do that with the lengthen and shorten lines. You've seen me, you guys have seen me do this loads of times before, but I will talk you through it one more time. On a spare piece of paper, you want to draw a rectangle, and that is an inch, or however much you need to lengthen your bodice by. You need to draw a rectangle that is that long. Now the important thing with lengthen and shorten lines is you want to make sure that there's a perpendicular line running through the lengthen and shorten line on the pattern piece. This one's to be cut on the fold. So once you've got your perpendicular line running through your lengthen and shorten line, you can cut your pattern piece in half. So we're going to take the bottom of our pattern piece and we're going to line up the cut edge with the bottom of our 1 inch rectangle. And again, mine has to be 1 inch because that's how much length I need to add, but it'll be however much length you need to add to your pattern piece. Take that down. You then want to take your ruler and the perpendicular line that you had through your lengthen and shorten lines, you want to continue that up through the lengthen box of 1 inch, and then we're going to match up the top edge, cut edge of our pattern piece and line that up. Make sure everything's nice and flat and take that down. And then we just need to true up the edges. So this front edge is very easy because it is a cut on the fold, so it's a straight line. So this side, I'm putting my ruler at the bottom of the dart and I'm just matching it up with the bottom corner of the pattern piece, and we're just going to trim that little bit excess off, and then we're going to repeat that for the back. Okay, with this piece we just need to rejoin the legs of our dart. The dart is ever so slightly curved, so you want to continue that curve. So that's our front piece done. I'm going to do the same for the back piece. Okay, so I have made myself a 7971 and I have a few tweaks that I want to make to the pattern. Well, I mean 1 tweak that I want to make to the pattern. So as you can see, I've added length to the bodice and it fits perfectly at the side, but I've got a little bit of gaping here. It's not quite taut enough against my back. So what I'm going to do is I've marked up 5/8 of an inch from the bottom, and with my French curve, because the side seam is the perfect length, so with my French curve, I have just gone from the corner at the side seam up to the 5/8 inch mark and marked in a line, and I'm just going to trim that off, and that will hopefully help this to lie flatter against my body when I make the next one, because I really will be making this again. I really like this dress. So it's just a tiny little amendment, and for the dress that I've finished, I'm going to go in, unpick the seam and just move it down that much, but for future dresses I can just now cut this piece out. I do recommend that you try on your dress once you have sewn the bodice to the skirt and you've got the zip in but you haven't sewn the facing on yet. You're going to need to put on your hooks and eyes at this point and this point so you can try the dress on properly, but it'll give you an idea if you end up with any gaping in this area. If you have any questions at all, please let me know in the comment section down below and I will do my best to answer them for you. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and I will see you again very soon. Bye!